All right, everyone, welcome back. Episode number 7 of the ABC Hockey Show. Tonight, we're going to talk about what looks like the first round matchups for the Rangers and the Penguins. Everyone, bear in mind that this is being recorded on Tuesday, so we are not including any of the games that are going on right now, even though the Pens are up 4-0 on Columbus. But we're going to go under the assumption and the matchups as of Monday night. That being said, it looks like the Rangers are going to be playing Montreal. That's probably how it's going to fall out anyway. And the Penguins are going to be playing Columbus, with the Penguins being the home team. Ben, do you want to get into the Montreal Rangers matchup?
Yeah, let's. I love how you, by the way, plugged your score what you're beating Columbus right now. So we have to talk about have to get that
Yeah.
in.
By the way, if we were down 7-1 like we were in the first matchup of the series, I definitely would. I would have been like, I have no idea. No one. I haven't watched it yet. Stay away. Don't tell me. Don't tell me.
Got it. That's what makes you great.
Hmm.
So we have So the Rangers are basically locked into the first wild card seed, which is great. Very happy. They're playing the Capitals tomorrow, and we talked about it earlier. They're resting 4 main guys, so that's exactly what they should be doing. So they're playing against the Canadiens. We want to talk about Canadiens Rangers matchups. I'm not going to start with this. I'm going to end off with the real main matchup to me, which is Carey Price and Henrik Lundqvist. That's really the two best players on each team, the two most important players in each team, and they can sway the series. If we just want to talk about kind of, goal scoring, defense, special teams, and I think that's really it. Those are the things we want to compare. So this season, the Rangers in goal scoring were actually very much above the Canadiens. Rangers are averaging 3.15 goals per game. Montreal's averaging 2.75. That's a big difference. The Rangers are a goal-scoring team this year. Now, again, it goes with the Price. Price makes that harder. But I think the Rangers have a deeper, four-line team than Montreal does. I'd give them, like, a slight edge there. Maybe, I even think the Rangers' top line is probably as good as Montreal's top line. Defense, they're surprisingly not as I think Montreal has the advantage, but Montreal's goals against are 2.41, Ranger 2.65. I thought it would be a little bit bigger of a spread. But the Rangers have a little bit older D, more miles on them, more wear and tear. I think that the Montreal, 1-6 is better than the Rangers 1-6. Shea Weber's been a big addition to them this year. Obviously, that big trade, Subban for Weber in the offseason.
He just got injured, right?
So I was just going to say he's out for the next 2 games, they say, but the indications out of Montreal that he's not missing more than 2 games. He'll be ready for game 1 of the playoffs no matter what. I'm going to assume that's true, and he's not going to miss a beat. He's been around long enough. He's good enough to step right back in. So I think that they're going to come in full strength. They've made some trades at the trade deadline to make them a burlier, heavier team. I think that's going to give the Rangers a little bit of a problem, but I think the Rangers offense is a faster, more scoring-oriented team. As with most playoff series, I think you're going to come down to special teams. The Rangers are not good on the power play. For the past, what year did Brian Leetch retire? Whatever that year was. Since then, the Rangers have not been good on the power play. The Rangers ranked this year on their power play. The Rangers are 11, and the Canadiens is that true? Wow. And the Canadiens are 13th.
Wow.
They're both not that good. Basically, the Rangers are 20%, and Canadiens are 19.7, which means a wash. I'm surprised. Montreal does not have a good power play, which is good for the Rangers. Penalty killing, here's you got a problem. Montreal is ranked 14th in penalty kill, 81% killing. Rangers are 23rd at 79.7%.
Wow.
And they've actually hit a slump in the last couple of weeks. I think that's going to be a main difference. The Rangers can pick up their penalty killing and maybe score, 1 power play goal a game, maybe a key turn. I think that'll make a big difference. Which again, because your best penalty killer is who? Goalie. I think that Carey Price versus Henrik Lundqvist is going to be a phenomenal matchup. Carey Price is one of the top goalies in the league. I would argue he's top 2 or 3. Hank right now is probably not that. He's probably in the top 10. I would like to put him in the top 5, but I think it's a tight squeeze if that's true. This year, go to the numbers. I think it doesn't matter the numbers. Hank and Carey Price are phenomenal world-class goaltenders. Here's where I think it makes a big difference. Hank has played 55 games this year. Carey Price has played 60. I think Hank's going to be fresh and is going to be motivated to steal a series. I think that's going to really put the Rangers in a big advantage. I think Hank's going to come in fresh, play well, and do what he does.
You know, it's interesting. When I was looking at this series, I actually thought that the goalie matchup is the one thing that I would have considered to be a wash, right? Like, both goalies are goalies that you could, quote, win a cup with. And yeah, let's not throw Marc-Andre Fleury into that category, but I'm just saying, just because you have doesn't mean you could. It's kind of like the same argument that you would make with, like, I don't know, Joe Flacco or, you know, but
the way we put it is, how many teams would trade their goalie for Carey Price or Aaron Lundqvist? A lot.
A lot of teams would, yeah. And again, both of them can steal games, and I think both of them, you know, to the extent that one will let up a bad goal, I think the other one would let up just as many. So I actually thought goalie would be the wash, and you'd find advantages or disadvantages, for that matter, in other areas of the game. But obviously, you being a Rangers fan, you'd have a better perspective on that.
Well, I'm biased towards Hank, right? I mean, I love him. I think he's so phenomenal. I think he's getting on in years. I think that is a wash. I just think that Hank's going to be driven. He's going to have played 5 less games than Carey Price. I think that gives something to him. He's a little bit older. It gives him a little bit more freshness.
I mean, you also have to think of the fact that Hank realizes that every year he doesn't win the cup is one more year closer to retirement, where Carey Price theoretically still has some good years. Not that Hank doesn't, but has more good years in front of him with a realistically better team around him than Hank does.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So where are we? How does the Pittsburgh... I mean, it's going to be Pittsburgh-Columbus, right? That's what it looks like.
So it looks like Pittsburgh and Columbus, and I think when looking at this series, there's the big X factor, which is not Malkin, it's not Crosby, it's not Bobrovsky, it's health. Right now, the Penguins are completely knocked up. They've been knocked out their place. They're not. Yeah, everyone's pregnant. Everyone on the Penguins is pregnant.
Well, Crosby is anyway.
Well, yeah, there it is. Yeah, what we say, Crosby is. Yeah, he's got 2 cups. So the injury bug has hit the Penguins particularly hard this year. They've still been able to succeed and win, but I'm going to go under the assumption when looking at this or making this analysis that everyone is healthy. And that goes for both Columbus and for Pittsburgh. I think it'd be unfair to assume one and not the other. So let's assume that everyone plays. If not everyone plays, then I think the game is very, very different. And depending on who can play, would really dictate the game. Like, just as an example, Rust left the game tonight, and we don't know his status. But I think just going under the assumption that everyone's playing, that means the Letangs of the world are playing, the Werenskis for Columbus are playing, and that Malkin's playing. So let's look at the lines right now. If you look at the 4 lines that each team has, for Pittsburgh, the Gensel, Crosby, Sheary line, they average 163 points. Now, that number is a little bit down because Gensel and Sheary missed some time. The first line of Columbus, the Foligno, Wenberg, and the Atkinson line is 167 points. Pretty even. You want to call it a wash, that's fine. The Penguins' second line of the Russ, Malkin, Hornquist has 141 points this season, whereas the Jenner, Dubinsky, Anderson line only has 98 points. So if you look at the first 2 lines, Pittsburgh has 304 points. Columbus has 265 points. A slight edge to the Penguins, but again, you could call it a wash. The second lines, again, assuming everyone's healthy, you got the HBK, Hags, Bonino, and Kessel. They've got 122 points, again, hit with the injury bug. And then that's versus the Hartnell, the Gagne, and the Saad line, which has 135 points. Again, slight edge to Columbus. Finally, the fourth line of Wilson, Cullen, and Kunitz has 82 points, whereas Columbus's Colvert, Carlson, and Bjorkstrand, who may move up to the third depending on how he's feeling, has only 48 points. So, again, the bottom 2 lines for Pittsburgh averages 204 points. The third and fourth line for Columbus has 183 points. Again, very, very close. Both teams score a lot of goals, so I don't necessarily know if you could just base it off of points. Again, it's kind of a skewed statistic because when one team scores, when one player on a line scores, typically they'll get an assist from the other. So it does become a little bit of a padded stat. When you look at the defense, again, assuming everyone's healthy, you'd have Letang and Schultz as your first line. They'd be plus 27. You'd have Werenski and Jones as Columbus's first line. They're plus 28, so another wash. For Pittsburgh, you'd have Dumoulin and Cole on your second line, which would be a plus 25. The Columbus second line of Johnson and Savard is plus 51, which is just unreal. I think you have to give the edge there. And then depending on who's healthy and whatnot, you'd have Mata and Hainsey or Mata and Streit, which would get you somewhere between 16 and 22 points versus Kyle Quincy and Nudavaro, which is, again, a plus 10 about. I think it's pretty much a wash. I think between the forwards and the defense, Pittsburgh may have a little bit better on the forward side. Columbus probably is a little bit better on the D side. You probably could wash those two out. Let's look at some other stats. Murray and Bobrovsky, I think there's no way you can give the edge to the Penguins as much as I would want to. Murray has been phenomenal this year, had a great rookie season. Bobrovsky's got a goals against, again, not including tonight, he let in 4 goals, but he's at 199, and his save percentage is 934. Murray has had a good season, but his goals against is 2.4, and his save percentage is at 923. So not only is Bobrovsky saving more shots, he's letting fewer goals in. I think you have to give the edge to Bobrovsky. That doesn't mean Murray can't steal a game, but it definitely, I think just looking at both goalies, if you ask me who I'd prefer, I know Murray's got some playoff experience from last year, but I think at this point in their careers, Bobrovsky's playing better. Now, to your point, Murray's only played 47 games, where Bobrovsky's played 61. He could be tired. You can make that argument, but I'm going to go under the assumption that Bobrovsky, look, he's been in the league for quite some time. He knows how to get it done. He knows the long stretch. I know Columbus hasn't really made long runs in the playoffs, but Bobrovsky knows how to play. He's 28 years old. It's not like he's just out of college, and it's not like he's been in the league forever. So I give them the edge there. Now we want to go into some analytics, and I may have gone a little bit overboard on this one.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
The first thing you already answered, but I want to circle back. Murray won a cup. He basically was the number one goalie for that whole stretch, right? Maybe Fleury entered the playoffs as basically the one, but I think after a couple of games he took over.
Fleury entered the playoffs as the one only because Murray was injured last year. He had that concussion late against the Flyers, who are such dirty players.
Hate the Flyers. But how much do you trust Bobrovsky in a playoff series? I don't know if you, and that leads my second question is the intangible of Columbus not having playoff experience. How do you rank that?
Look, I think they have a nice core of young players. I really do think that there is something to be said about intangibles, about being there and have played in it before. You got Malkin and Crosby have played a ton of playoff games. Kessel just got some experience last year. Most of the guys on the team were on last year's team for the Penguins, so that helps. But hockey's hockey, right? These guys have been playing essentially the whole season for, Columbus, that is. And they've had to play at playoff type level because, as we had mentioned in previous episodes, you lose 3 games in a row and you're in the 4th place in the Metro, right? These teams have been fighting every game, every night mattered. Every 2 points you could get was important. And it's not like one team ran away with the division and they've been playing meaningless games. Every game, even tonight's game, matters. And I think that kind of helps fill the gap between had playoff experience and doesn't.
Okay, interesting.
Looking at some of the statistics or some of the team stats, which I think tell a better story than just straight up points or plus minus, because those are some statistics that can be skewed. The Penguins average more shots per game at 33.9, whereas Columbus is only at 30.9, so advantage to them. Pittsburgh has a slightly better power play at 22.6%, whereas Columbus is only at 19.9. However, Columbus has a slightly better PK. They're at 82.8, where Pittsburgh's only at 80.3. So let's assume power play and PK wash themselves out. An interesting stat, this one actually blew me away. If I had to tell you, if you had to bet which team had more hits, Columbus or Pittsburgh, who would you guess?
Columbus.
Without a doubt, I would have thought it would been like a difference of over 150 hits or so. Actually, Pittsburgh has over 120 or so more hits than Columbus. Pittsburgh has more than 400 hits. 1943 on the season, where Columbus only has 1529.
Wow.
Crazy. I never would have guessed that.
It's a weird stat, and the NHL doesn't know how to keep stats, but that's a huge difference.
That's also true. But that is like a significant difference. I thought Columbus would have been up there with the likes of dirty Philly and some of the other guys. That was a stat that really surprised me that Pittsburgh this year has played much more physical than they have. Also, Pittsburgh blocked 1,243 shots, where Columbus only blocked about 1,100. So again, in a short playoff series, being able to block a shot here or there, having 10 more block shots or 8 more block shots in a game, really would help the difference between the two goalies.
Mm-hmm.
When looking at possession, Columbus is slightly better face-off wins, 1 basis point better. They're at 48.6, whereas Pittsburgh's 47.6. Neither team is great in the face-off circle, so I don't really know if that's going to come into play. One interesting stat I saw is that even strength goals, the Pens lead the league at 201, where Columbus is only at 188. So again, assuming that Pittsburgh can keep themselves out of the penalty box, it probably would go well for them. Talking about goals scored, Columbus is a better first period team. This season they have 77 first period goals, whereas the Penguins only have 62 first period goals. However, when we go to the second and the third, there is huge differentials there. In the second period, the period of the long change, which again, a lot of younger teams struggle with, Pittsburgh leads the league with 95 goals scored in the second period, where Columbus only has 75. And then when you look at closing out games and winning games, the Pens have the most third period goals scored at 99, where Columbus only has 76. Again, I think that may be a difference that we see down the stretch in a Game 5, a Game 6, or a Game 7. I think the last big stat that I'll touch upon is the home and away record. Pittsburgh this season is again not including Tuesday night, but Pittsburgh is 36-4, which would mean a 75% win, because those four shootout losses would have been losses in general. So I consider that to be 30-10. Whereas Columbus is 28-11-1, or also known as 28-12. So call them 70%. A slight edge to the Penguins. One thing I was surprised about, not that the Penguins were bad on the road, but Columbus is actually pretty good. The Pens are 18, 13-7, which would be 18-20, which is a 47 win percentage, not great. Columbus, however, is 21-10-7, which is 21-18, which is a 55% win percentage. That actually could make a difference. I think if Columbus gets home ice advantage, then I think that they've got a much better advantage in terms of taking the series, where if Pittsburgh has it, I think it's a little bit more even, potentially going down to Game 7 and just deciding there. That's a lot of stats thrown at you guys and a lot of numbers. For me, I kind of love the numbers. I love diving into it. But just overall gut, I think you have star players on the Penguins side that you don't really see on the Columbus side. You've got some household names, and you do have the Cam Atkinsons of Columbus, but I really do think that having that star power, those game changers, and those playmakers really could be the X factor in this series.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting series. We'll come back before the playoffs with our playoff predictions. Once we have the full bracket set, and we're going to go through the whole thing. So that's for next week. I want to just, before we come off the air, I want to mention we talked about this week. I have to mention this. Austin Matthews, Toronto, who is now second in the Atlantic Division, which is crazy to me. Austin Matthews has 39 goals and 28 assists for 67 points in his rookie year, leading Toronto. Leading them as their best player. He is unbelievable, and I'm so excited for him to be the next guy that carries this league.
It's interesting. I actually see him as the next Ovechkin, whereas I see McDavid as the next Crosby. I hate to make that analysis, and I hope Ovechkin never wins a cup, but I just kind of see the way that they play, but it's so freaking impressive to see this kid. Although the one thing I hate that they keep saying is that he has the most goals by a rookie U.S.-born player. Like, why can't you just tell us where he stands? And, who cares where he's born? Why are we analyzing these players based off where they're born? This isn't the Olympics. Just tell me he's got the third most goals by a rookie. Who cares? You know what I mean? It's such a stupid way to look at things, because it's not like, well, if you're born in the U.S., you can only play on these teams, but if you're born in Canada, you can play on these teams. No, when was the last time we said, this quarterback leads the league in touchdowns for quarterbacks who are between 6'3" and 6'4" and weigh 189 pounds. It's just those silly statistics of this batter has 3 home runs on Tuesdays during day games. Like it's really...
it's the thing from Major League. It's about Bucher. He goes, he's hitting 365, batting left-handed on a full moon when his wife is there. It's such a manufactured stat that is American versus Canadian thing. It's ridiculous, right? We have good players from everywhere now.
Right.
You have Russia, you have Sweden, you have everywhere. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So again, that doesn't take away from what he's doing. He's having a ridiculous season. Toronto is really lucky to have him. I hope he continues to be healthy and continue to play.
I'm excited to see him in the playoffs.
He's a ton of fun to watch. And yeah, he will be exciting to see in the playoffs, and it's good for the league to have some of the younger up-and-comers in the playoffs this season. I think that kind of brings us to the show. As Ben mentioned, next week we will go through all the bracket, East and West. I know a couple of you left comments that they wanted to hear more about the West. We will go through East and West predictions. We will go head-to-head in terms of where we see the brackets falling out and predict our cup winners. And then we will try and do the best of analysis as we can, even though the West is not really our forte. Again, we appreciate everyone listening. If you have any comments, please feel free to leave it at the bottom of the YouTube clip, or feel free to hit us up on Facebook. Shoot us an email at abchockeyshow@gmail.com. Again, abchockeyshow@gmail.com. Have a good night, guys.